Hello, everybody. It has been a while. Nick, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Oh, I am fantastic. It has been a very long time since this channel has done anything, but I think one of the last things we did was a review of The Last of Us 2. So it kind of only makes sense that we would come back like a phoenix to talk about The Last of Us TV show.
Absolutely. So we just got done watching episode one of this first season. So, Kurt, what were your initial thoughts?
Okay, so there was a lot of build up to this for me. I mean, my first tattoo was The Last of Us. This story obviously means a ton to me. I followed it from like the day one of filming on, and I thought I had like set the expectations too high, but after one episode, obviously it's not gone too far into the story, but I'm really happy with what they have so far. I think they nailed the acting, the atmosphere. I think we're in for a treat the next few weeks here.
So, before we get too far, we need to see this tattoo, Curtis,
Oh, yeah.
and a little bit of an explanation.
All right. So it's Joel's watch, and it says endure and survive, and it's got the fern that Ellie has uh to cover up her bite mark in the second game. So it's a little bit of both. And the watch obviously has a lot of meaning because Joel keeps wearing it in memory of Sarah, and then Ellie takes it up and wears it in memory of Joel. So things are falling.
because because Curtis is a real fan here, folks.
So what were your thoughts, Nick, as somebody who has played the games but isn't as deep into it as I am?
So I I love what they've done with it so far, just like from the first episode. And there's definitely like a lot of buildup for me as well. Um, and I've kind of been going back and replaying the first game as well, just to kind of get a refresher for me on what goes on and everything like that. And it's really cool that they have the director from the video game on the show as well, to have that input. But I
Mm-hmm.
really like how they even take the dialogue straight up from the script, but then they also have some added pieces too, as well. Like for
Mm-hmm.
instance, with Sarah going over to the Adlers and like showing the build up and being
Yep.
able to explore the backstory a little bit more as opposed to just like they drop you into the game. So
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that's why a lot of video game adaptations get a bad rap because things that work in video games don't necessarily work in a film format. So this they were smart. They carried over like the themes and the atmosphere of it, but they've added and expanded. They realized that for a movie, you don't have to get right into the action. You can take your time and let things breathe. In the game, Sarah is just like a tutorial, basically. Like you learn how to move around and see the world and interact with things. Whereas in the show, they really let her character breathe some more, and that was it made her final moments a lot more impactful. I thought.
that was,
Anybody, anybody who had doubts about Pedro Pascal, he just destroyed them in that moment.
oh my gosh. And they like both actors were incredible in that
Mm-hmm.
scene. Absolutely.
God.
That was that was so good.
Mm-hmm. It played out pretty much exactly like the video game, but it hit just as hard, man. It was insane.
I honestly think it hit a little bit harder just because you got to see more of
Mm-hmm.
Sarah's character develop.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's
Mm-hmm.
like, wow. Um, you're like, oh, wow, this burns a little bit, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you know, what are what were some of your favorite moments or like things that you're excited to see and develop from this, or things that you wish just from this first episode would have developed a little bit further, or
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the thing that like got me the most excited was the ending. As soon as it ended, I was ready for more, and I think they nailed it perfectly because story wise, if you've played the game and know where the story's going, you're just getting Joel and Ellie together, and you want to see more of that because that's the heart of the game. And as a newcomer, if you don't know anything about it, you're just finding out about Ellie's infection and the fact that she's probably immune, and you need to know more there. So they found a way to kind of cliffhang both audiences, and I thought that was really clever. A lot of the new added stuff was great, like the old like news footage where they're talking about how the fungus like controls your brain. So it's not like a zombie infection; it's just this thing that's controlling your body. And I thought that was like it's stuff in the lore that we've known, but like to see it put out like that for a general audience was really cool.
I absolutely love that. I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
so well done. And the fact that they also then explained, this is similar to um, the ant that is infected by the fungi. And to have that example of like, hey, this could happen. And I think I might do a little bit of research and put some stuff in later for how plausible is this
Mm-hmm.
segment or something to that extent.
Yeah,
But
for sure. Because the game
yeah,
developers have come out and said that they base this whole thing on like actual scientific research that if this specific type of fungus could infect people, this is pretty much the effect it would have on you.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Because I know, back when The Walking Dead was coming out and, zombies were coming in, kind of making their rise in the early 2000s and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
um, or late 2010, something like that, early 2010s.
Yep.
I remember talking about how plausible a viral infection like that would be. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to see, um, how kind of the viral infection that did happen with COVID and like the comparison. And I think the show actually was able to touch on that and upgrade
Mm-hmm.
to, the now like today's time as compared to, when it came out in the late, 2008, something like that,
Game came out in 2013.
2013. Why did I think 2008?
Dude, that's wild to think about. Like that game feels so old, but both of us were out of high school by that point.
I know. I know. Um, and I think it's wild too that, there's roughly, depending on how fast you play it, there's roughly between 8 to maybe 12 hours of gameplay just in that first game itself,
Mm-hmm.
give or take. And the amount of story that was able to develop over those, few hours was incredible. So,
Mm-hmm. And to be able to see that expanded on is gonna be so sweet. What was I gonna say? Oh, so we did start a bingo card because we were just goofy. So I'm gonna send a picture of mine to Nick, and then he'll do his editing magic and possibly show some of that. But we got three things on for this week. We got guitar, the word baby girl, and a zombie infected with a backstory. And I think that definitely qualifies with the old lady next door.
they gave her enough of a backstory that,
Mm-hmm. That shows up in the game. He mentions the neighbors, but and then the guy obviously comes in the back door. But this was a much expanded scene.
well, yeah, she goes over and, has bakes cookies and find
Yep.
out the grandma's death. And
Yep.
so that
And
was,
go
oh,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and speaking of desserts, we've decided that there are Reese's on the line. Whoever gets a bingo first, so high stakes.
Yes, I will be mailing you one, or you will be mailing me one.
Yes,
Either of the two.
exactly. So, there were some changes from the games that a lot of people were upset about beforehand, like the fact that they took the spores out, because obviously in the games the gas masks mean a lot. Like there are a lot of pivotal story moments that kind of revolve around that. But I think I like what they did with the new, I forget what they call them, but they're like the little like tentacles that come out and like grab you, like especially in the infected's mouths that you saw like the little tentacle things coming out. I thought that was really creepy looking.
that was a weird addition. I was not anticipating that.
Oh man, I
Um,
just can't wait for those things to like come alive and grab somebody. Oh,
I mean, if you've watched the footage of the ant that's body gets taken over, it does have a the fungus does like end up coming out at like one point, so it's kind of wild to watch.
hmm.
And so I guess it's kind of reminiscent of that almost in terms of like
Sure.
the fungus, like being the host of the body and the body just being like the vessel for it basically.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Like they said, it keeps it from decomposing just enough to like get it around and stuff, which is really great, like explanation and stuff that is neat. Yeah. So we talked about Pedro Pascal a little bit. What did you think of Bella Ramsey as Ellie in the little bit we got to see of her?
I kind of like what they did with her, honestly.
Hmm.
Because I think that's more like angsty teenager vibe, like a 14-year-old,
Oh,
where
absolutely.
as like in the game when you first meet her, she's kind of like lackadaisical, like a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and this one's more like I like that they gave her a little bit more of like the rebellious teenager, and she's pissed that she's locked up and whatnot. So I feel like
Hmm.
it's a little bit more like it makes more sense than her and Marlene just being like BFFs and whatnot. So
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I did like that they kept it to where Joel and Ellie's first meeting is kind of like tenuous. Like she tries to attack him when he walks in just because he's this unknown like element and she doesn't trust anything, which is absolutely valid in that world. But I think immediately they had instant chemistry. I saw a lot of people online that were not happy about Bella Ramsey and for a lot of stupid reasons, but whatever. She absolutely owned it, and I think she's going to be great.
I mean, everybody's gonna be like nobody's gonna be happy
Hmm.
about something
Yeah.
all the time. Like it just is what it is.
Hmm.
But honestly, like I think that she's kind of nailing it, and it's a little bit of a different interpretation of Ellie.
Hmm.
Um, would you have put somebody else, or who would you have put, or instead of Bella Ramsey?
I think after the first episode, I wouldn't replace her for young Ellie. But for part two, if they ever like cover it and make a season two covering the second game, since Ellie obviously ages up a little bit, I would think about replacing her for an actress named Caitlin Deaver. You know her from Booksmart. Um, yeah, she's incredible. And for years and years, when she was first coming up, I was like, man, she would be the perfect Ellie for The Last of Us. And now that part two is out, like, and she's a little old even for that, but she could make it work. She is a great actress, and she looks dead on the part.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. I think, yeah, that's and like her acting ability is incredible too. Her range.
Hmm.
Um,
And bonus, she can sing. She was just in a musical, and that's a big part of the second game is the bond between Ellie and Joel and their singing. What about you? Is there anybody you would recast?
I wasn't, I'm honestly pretty happy. I didn't know that Marlene's character was actually the woman who voiced her. And I was
Hmm.
stoked. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love when the voice actors get to actually play their physical characters. And that
Hmm.
was my only thing was I was kind of hoping that the people who voiced Ellie and Joel were going to be able to play Ellie and Joel.
Hmm.
But I think um I really like both of them so far.
Hmm. I do think they're great. And I was so happy to see Marlene like be able to her name's Meryl Dandridge, like be able to step in and actually like wear the clothes and become that character instead of just like doing it behind the scenes. Oh, it was so great.
Oh, I know. I'm stoked. Um, there's a couple other like minor like little changes that they've made. Just it being about the battery to get to Tommy instead of being
Hmm.
about the guns.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not sure if at this point if Tommy's actually affiliated with the Fireflies in this particular rendition of it.
Hmm.
What do you think's going on there?
Yeah, I think he's definitely affiliated with the Fireflies. I think he's I don't know where he's at now, but he's going to end up at Jackson by the time we meet him next. I'm positive he's going to be in that setup. Um, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the song at the end though? The '80s song signaling trouble for Bill and Frank.
That was interesting, especially like Depeche Mode. Like I wasn't quite anticipating that. Um, but I thought that was a really good ending to that first episode.
Hmm. Yep.
I think they covered a lot of ground in that first episode.
Hmm. Oh yeah. The one thing that kind of didn't click for me because I've been playing the game for so long, I had my mom come over and she watched it with us. She was like insanely shocked by how fast the runners were. I was like, yeah, that's part of it, man. This isn't The Walking Dead or anything where they've been like corroding for and decomposing for forever. Like these guys they're fast.
Oh yeah, I enjoy that they're like fast zombies for sure.
Oh, just
Which
wait
is
for the
a
first clicker to come up, man. Oh,
when do you think it's going to happen? If you had to take a guess,
my guess is on second episode. I
you
think
think
they
that's
get to the museum in the second episode, and I think the second episode will end with them at probably the Capitol building. So when Tess leaves the show,
I think they're going to do that in the third episode
you think I could see that? Okay,
because
I
if
think
you're trying,
I think the third episode is going to be Bill and Frank. I'm putting my money on Bill and Frank.
I'm going to make that the fourth one.
Really? Okay. Guess we'll see some more interesting stuff coming up. Yeah, it really just comes down to like where they want to expand the story because there are so many like little characters and storylines that they could really let breathe. There are some they could tighten up just to keep things more like confined. So it really is anybody's guess. They've kept people who know the story kind of guessing already.
I know. So as far as like season two, do you think they're going to expedite it straight to when Ellie's older, like in the second game, or do you think there's going to be a little bit more of like a breathing period and build up to that second game?
I think I just read an article that said that they don't really want to cover anything outside of like the storyline of the game. So if they do a second season, it will be based on part of the second game. They also said that the second game is too big for one season, so that would be like a multiple season thing, which is something I've been saying for years now.
It's a 40-hour game.
It's ridiculously long. I think you need, and spoilers for the second game, I think you need a season for Ellie, a season for Abby, like both of their like time in Seattle, and then possibly another season for the stuff afterwards.
I would say almost four.
Uh
I would
huh.
say almost 4 seasons because like
Yeah.
if you think about this game, like you're talking a little bit closer to 10-hour gameplay, right? So if you're talking 10 hours like per season, um, or whatever, then that's
Yeah.
like what, roughly three,
Wild.
4 seasons. So
Hey, lay it on me. I love the second game still. I think I've soured on it a little bit. Like when I first came out, I was like, this is the perfect game. Nothing will ever beat this. Now that I've played it, I'm playing it like the third or fourth time. It has some pacing issues, like especially when Abby shows up. It's not nothing against like the storyline for her. It's just a drag once you get to that point because you've gone through 3 days of murdering mass people as Ellie, and then all of a sudden you got to go back and go through those three same days again.
oh yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't like fast forward at all. And I think that's where some of the
Hmm.
dragging comes in for sure.
Yeah, still
Uh,
absolutely love that game, and I think that's super important for like growing to love Abby as a character. But man, it's brutal when you go back and try to play it again.
oh God, I can only imagine. Like I'm playing through the first one right now, and the pacing is so well done.
Hmm.
I think the reason why the first one is so good is because the storyline, because that, with Sarah, that didn't feel like a tutorial at all.
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't like a typical like look around, like
Yeah.
here's how to shoot, here's how to.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, like Joel's gone, like you got to go find him.
Hmm. They like subtly weave it into the story. Like there's an explosion, and all of a sudden, oh, click this button to see what the fuck is going on, that kind of thing.
Yep. So, and I think the pacing of the first game is so well done to create such a intricate storyline
Hmm.
in such a short time frame for today's games.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, when games are 40 plus hours of just straight up campaign, which is great,
Hmm.
but I think there's something to be told about the conciseness and also the gameplay itself in that
Hmm.
first one.
Yeah. Yeah, so many games these days are open world and spend hundreds of hours going through all these side quests. This game says, no, here's Joel. He's going on this adventure, and you're going with him. These are the choices he's making, and you just got to go along for the ride. And there's something to be said for that too.
I think my one of my favorite things about the first episode so far is the cinematography,
Hmm.
in particular because it is very reminiscent of the game.
Hmm.
I think that they did such a good job with the shots, everything from kind of following Sarah around in the house to being in the truck with Tommy and Joel. They pretty much recreated that scene for scene from the
Hmm.
game. That was
Yep.
really cool to see.
Hmm.
Um, and then also, towards the end of the episode when they're going through the trying to stay away from Fedra,
Hmm.
um, that was also like the camera itself is a character in the game,
Hmm.
um, and also in the show too,
Yep.
where sometimes shows and movies and whatnot will kind of just show you what's happening as opposed to like put you in the action. So I think they
Hmm.
did a really good job of keeping
Yeah,
that
they
aspect.
they used a lot of handheld cam too, which I really appreciated because he put you in the action. Something else I kind of thought was funny was they right off the bat were subverting expectations. Like the game does the same thing for like what you're expecting to be in it, what you're expecting from a video game. The Last of Us kind of like tosses that and throws it on its head. The same thing with this. Like if you know the story and you know exactly what happens when they're driving through the town, they almost get T-boned by a car, and that's what flips the car in the first place. But they fly past it, and something else takes out the truck. So right off the bat, they're just like throwing you for a loop, but they're playing
Oh,
with you. Like they're almost giving you what you think's going to happen, but then something else happens.
yep, yep. So I think they kept it pretty close to like the game itself.
Hmm.
But I like the twist and the newness to it as well.
Yeah.
And also expanding upon the world too.
Yep. Exactly. And it was a beast of an episode. Like it was like 85 minutes or something. It was a chunky episode, and I still wanted more. So that's high praise.
Same, same. So, well, is there anything else that you had for this one?
I don't think so. I'm just really excited to see where this goes, man. I had a lot of fun.
I did too. I'm excited for next week's episode. So
Yeah.
we will be back next week with
We'll be
another
back.
review.
Yeah. We'll do more instant reactions then.